Hi everyone, I am here to discuss about the place and manners of articulation. But before we start, let me introduce myself. I am Sheldwin Estacio, a third-year student taking a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. We are about to discuss the place and manners of articulation. But first, let us define what articulation is. Articulation is the movement of tongue, lips, jaw, and other speech organs called the articulators in order to make speech sounds. Articulation can be classified into two, the place and the manners of articulation. The place of articulation is the point of maximum obstruction, while the manners of articulation is the way in which the obstruction is formed and released. We move on to the examples of the consonants and their place of articulation. Number one is the bilabials. Bilabials is sound produced by bringing the lips together. Examples: letter P sounds P, letter B sounds B, B, and letter M sounds M. To get or pronounce the sounds correctly, make sure that you bring your upper lips and lower lips together. Next is the labiodentals. Labiodentals is sound produced with the bottom lip against upper teeth. Examples: letter F, letter V. Make sure that your bottom lip is against your upper teeth to pronounce the sounds properly. Next is the interdentals. Interdentals is sound produced with the tip of tongue between the upper and lower teeth. It is also called dentals. Examples: thin, thin, this, this. Make sure that the tip of your tongue is in between the upper and lower teeth. Next is the alveolars. Alveolars is sound produced with the front of tongue against the alveolar ridge. Alveolar ridge is the part of the roof of the mouth that is right behind the teeth. Examples: letter T, Z, N, S, Z, L, and R. Examples: letter T, 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 D, D, N, N, Mm, mm, We move on to the palatal. Palatal is sound produced with the front part of the tongue against the hard palate just behind the alveolar ridge. Example: we move on to the velar. Velar is sound produced with the back part of tongue against the soft palate. It is also called the velum. We move on to the glottal. Glottal is sound produced with the glottis, or called the vocal cords. The H sound is produced with the open glottis. If the glottis is closed to stop the air momentarily, a glottal stop is produced. We move on to the consonants and their manners of articulation. Number one is the voice and voiceless sound. Voice and voiceless sound. You should feel vibration on all the vowels and on V, Z, and G, the voice consonants. Other voice consonants, letter M, N, and G, Z, then, they, measure, J, W, Y, L, and R. To get the sounds correctly, or to make sure that you get the sound correct, hold your neck and you can feel vibration on all the vowels. B, 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 g, g. We move on to the nasal and oral sound. Nasal and oral sound pronounced through the nose are nasal. Examples: letter M, N, and NG. N, n, mm. Those pronounced through the mouth are oral. All other consonants. We move on to the stop. The stop sound produced in which the air stream stops completely in the mouth cavity for a brief period. Take note that in M, N, and NG, the nasal stops. Air stops in the mouth even though it goes through the nose. We move on to the fricatives. Fricatives is sound in which the airstream is not totally stopped, but it is obstructed to a narrow area causing friction. Examples: s, s, z, z, the t, t, sh, sh, sh. We move on to the affricates. Affricates is combine a stop and a fricative, and you get an affricate. Basically, to make one of these, you pronounce the stop, then the fricative. Examples Examples are the T and SH. When you combine them together, the sound is J, J, J. You combine letter D, Z, H. Affricates are also classified as stops since the airstream is halted briefly. We move on to the liquids. Liquids are sounds where the airstream is obstructed, but not so much as to either stop it or create friction. Pronounce all or R very slowly and hear the difference between the vowel and the liquid. How the tongue flexes back toward the alveolar ridge in most dialects. L is considered a lateral liquid because it is made by putting the tip of the tongue against the alveolar ridge, then letting the airstream flow around the side of the tongue. Examples of the liquids are I and R. We move on to the glides. Glides is sound with little or no obstruction to the airstream in the mouth. Glides and liquids are the closest things to vowels among the consonants.
Sir, padaw selfie to sir.
In fact, in some languages, they function almost as vowels. Examples of glides are y and w. Y, w, w. And now that ends my discussion for today. Hope it will help you to guide, pronounce the vowels correctly. Thank you.